Oder?
This meeting is being recorded.
No need to mute yourself, guys. Hello, everyone. We have already people joining. Cool to see that you're already coming so punctual, all of you. That's awesome. So just let me work on my setup here because it's a mess, I can tell you. Cool. So I'm happy to have all of you here today and so many people coming in. As you all know, today's webinar is about Google App Campaigns and how we can scale them. I hope you are as excited as I am. Let me just start the poll while we wait for the other people to join. In the meantime, hi, I'm Rebecca, by the way. I forgot to introduce myself. That's what I always forget. And let me just see what we have on the agenda today. So today we're going to talk about how to identify KPIs that can contribute most to your business goals. Then we will talk about bidding strategies and finally how you can optimize your creatives. Feel free to leave comments in the Q&A section. We will answer the questions either at the end of the webinar or if we have not enough time, I will of course send them out in the follow-up email. Yes, of course, with the recording, which will be either this week or latest on Monday. So don't worry, you will get everything you need. Let me just wait one more minute for all of you to finish the poll. So the poll questions are for the panelists that, do you see the poll? Yes, you do, right? Okay, so let me quickly see. Okay, let me finish the poll now. So we have enough time to talk about the actual topics. So do you see the results now? I think you do, right? So most of you are already running Google App Campaigns. That's awesome. But not all of you have already optimization processes implemented. Then that's good that you're here today because our dear panelists that are going to introduce themselves in a minute are going to tell you everything you need to know here. So now I give over the word to my dear panelists and tell us something about yourselves, please.
Elena, do you want to start? Or shall I? Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Christoph. I'm the head of app marketing services here at AppRadar. So I'm leading basically the operational side of our business. And personally, I'm coming from the UA side. Yeah, I've been working for the past more or less 10 years now in the UA industry at a gaming studio in Vienna first and at the agency side afterwards. And yeah, I'm very excited to be here today and talk a bit about Google App Campaigns.
Yeah, then I guess I'll take over and introduce myself quickly. I mean, hello everyone and welcome to our today's webinar also from my side. Thank you, Rebecca and Christoph, for the short intro. Some of you might know me already. I'm Elena, app marketing expert here at AppRadar. So also always on the outlook for new tricks and tips to share with all of you guys, and super excited, especially about today's topic, Google App Campaigns, and also super excited to have Christoph here, who will, I will start in with a small intro, and then I will give the floor over to Christoph, our, I would call it really performance marketing guru, and I'm sure you will learn some cool things here. So good, let's get started, and let's start with a short intro to Google App Campaigns and what it's all about. I mean, in a nutshell, what are the main features? What are the important things to note here? Is on the one hand, yeah, of course, I mean, as we saw also in the poll, happy to hear that all of you, or 90%, I think was the number of you are already running Google App Campaigns. So I will try to keep that intro short. But yeah, basically why I am such a fan of Google App Campaigns is on the one hand, you have the opportunity to show your ads over a wide range of Google's online products. Yeah, they will be running across search, YouTube, display, and also very nice across Google Play Store. So giving you also the opportunity to be natively present. On the other hand, it's also kind of making it very easy to set up and everything, as Google, as we all know, mix and matches your out of the ad text that you provide, and also the information that you have in your store listing means also here coming into place your apps optimization efforts, because it will also take out information from there. So really trying to create the best combination out of that and create an ad for you. And then there are, last but not least, Google supports both iOS and Android devices. And we have then the different focus topics that we can choose, either on installs, engagement, pre-registration, sorry guys. But let's dive into each of them on the next slide. Because I think that's just super important also to differentiate here, and also to see what makes most sense in which phase. Yeah, I mean, when we choose app promotion as a goal, we then basically see which type of app campaigns fits the best. So on the one hand, we have to focus on installs, really trying to get that large amount of new users to our app. And in that way, Google adjusts the bits and shows the ad elements according to what seems to bring in the most app downloads. Versus if you would focus on engagement, so really trying to get higher value users by getting them to take a specific in-app action. And here Google would adjust the bits basically to show elements according to what seems to trigger that in-app action as well. Can be seen, I would call it like kind of a retargeting option. So really trying to focus on engaging users who already have your app and take them to a targeted action. And this is also important to differentiate here, that this is really only for users that already have the app installed and you want to bring them more down the funnel. And the other thing I think I would say less common probably is the app pre-registration focus. That is on the one hand only possible for Android users. And here it's all about creating awareness for your app or game before they release on Google Play, and trying to enable them to pre-register. And yeah, depending then on the focus of your campaign, this will help Google also to determine the right bid strategy for your ads so that you can reach the right users. And then let's say when we're having a closer look at this, and you're trying to focus on now really getting that install volume, and you're trying to focus on getting more installs, you have on the one hand the option to set a target cost per install. In other words, choosing how much you're willing to pay to acquire a new user for your app. Or you have the option to give that power to Google over and work with so-called maximized conversion campaigns, where you're trying to get really the highest install volume for the given campaign's budget that you have. That would be the one option, really CPI driven and user volume growth. Then when we're looking in the direction of in-app actions, which KPIs are we looking at here? Yeah, we're setting a target CPA. In other words, choosing how much we're willing to pay for a new user who is likely also to complete the in-app event that you selected. And yeah, important to note here would also be that there is some background work needed, setting up action as conversion events, basically, for example, with Firebase. And on the other hand, pre-registration that I mentioned beforehand as well already, setting here really a target cost per pre-registration. In other words, in that case, it would be choosing how much you're willing to pay to get a new user to pre-register. And last but not least, target return on ad spend. Still in beta for app campaigns. But this bid strategy is basically recommended if you're really looking for a specific return on ad spend from your app campaigns, and then trying to get that average conversion value that you would like to get for each dollar you would like to spend on ads. That was a quick intro, and I will give over the floor now to our performance marketing guru, Christoph.
Thank you, Elena, for the intro, and also thanks, Rebecca, for the intro before. Let me continue here, guys, for some like a generic overview on the structure of the campaigns. I mean, I'm sure since most of you are running already UAC, you know that, yeah. So this is a bit of a repetition. You know that unlike other networks like Facebook, we have 3 levels of layers within a campaign. We have the campaign level, we have the ad group level, where the assets are and the ads are basically included. And then we have the asset level. Basically here, the biggest difference to, for example, let's say Facebook, is that Google is automatically forming the creatives based on the assets that you input there. So this is something that we would call a black box. Yeah? You know, most of the inputs that we can give are creative on the one hand, and I'm going to elaborate a bit more on the creative side in a minute. And then also targeting countries. Yeah, I mean, it's not like that we can run specific audience targeting or interest targeting like we do on Facebook, yeah, for example. Google really purely relies on automation and on the machine learning here. And if done right, let's say, if you give the right inputs to these campaigns, they usually belong to the, let's say, highest ROAS channels across all marketing channels out there. For the target countries, maybe also another point that can be useful is that, I mean, you see, for example, here we combined Germany and Austria. If you think of Google UAC as a strategic channel also to serve maybe regions or bundled countries that are your target markets, let's say, then you can also combine countries. Yeah, I mean, usually in the beginning, Google recommended often against that, but let's say in the light of DACH, for example, if you also know that, you know, texts are being also used as keywords in this black box that Google has, it makes definitely sense also sometimes to combine markets with each other. On the ad group level, I will talk a bit later more about it. It's some way that you can structurize it by themes. If you're a game publisher, you can, for example, structure your ad groups by the different games that are in your portfolio, or it's simply your USPs that your company or your product or your service has. Definitely strategic theming makes sense here on the ad group level. Yeah, and then you form the messages, the videos, and the images around that theme. Yeah, a small tip and trick here on the right side, you see, I mean, we heard a lot about bidding already from Elena before, is try to keep in mind that, yeah, when you bid on installs, it should be usually around 50, the daily budget that you have should be around 50 times your bid. Yeah, I mean, take it all with a grain of salt, because I've also seen lower benchmarks working well, but it should be more or less on your horizon to see, are you on the right way or not? Because if you're, let's say, way below these benchmarks, usually the Google ML is not performing on a very high level. And the same thing goes with TCPA campaigns. I mean, if you're already bidding down the funnel, you should usually have a bid 10 times your daily budget. Sorry, a daily budget 10 times your bid, the other way around. And also here, obviously, I've seen campaigns also working with 8 times more or less. The ML needs to get regular signals in order to improve and keep the performance going and search for users that are more likely to perform these kind of actions for you. That means the less input it gets, the worse it is. Yeah, the more, the better. So obviously, if you're above this benchmark, then all well. But yeah, here you see, for example, like if you have a CPA of, let's say, a cost per purchase is around 80 euros, then you should have around 800 euros daily budget in order for the ML to learn properly and keep on learning. So these are some generic tips about the campaign structure in Google App Campaigns. Now, if we go to the next slide, yeah, we see some important KPIs, and they are kind of connected also to the different campaign types and the bidding methods that Elena already presented. It really depends here on in which stage you are with your app. Are you rather in the beginning, or are you already matured in your market and you're just looking for quality users? Depending on your objective here, I would recommend also to use different stages that Google offers in terms of bidding, right? I mean, first and foremost, I think the most important KPI for all apps is the install simply. Let's say if you just launch your app, or if you're in the soft launch, I think you're very highly interested in increasing your user base. That means you will go for maximizing installs. If you already are, let's say, on the market for a couple of months and you see the product is kind of nicely growing, the retention rates look good, maybe you can go already more down the funnel and bid on an event that is more likely to increase your revenue in your business. Yeah. It doesn't have to be revenue also right away. It can be also something that binds users to the app, or levels, etc., etc. If you're a game, level is also kind of important. Then you can go for TCPA bidding already. There's also something in between. I'm sure also most of you know that already. It's called install advanced bidding, and you can more or less place it between install and conversions. Yeah. And it's really great. I mean, I also often started campaigns from scratch like this, because it, on the one hand, you ensure that you get enough install volume already from the beginning, but the ML will look for people who are most likely to perform an in-app action already. Whatever that is, it's already a conversion that the ML is looking for in that regard. All these signals, depending on what you put, help the ML to learn and properly place your ads with the right, within the right target audience. Because as you remember, since we target all countries, so full countries, not any like interest, so we cannot narrow it down pretty much. The bidding method will really define on where the ML looks for the users that you want to get. Obviously, then on the last stage, really down the funnel, many companies are focusing on maximizing revenue. Google has the TROAS bidding for that in place. Yeah, we heard about it before from Elena as well. I would ultimately say if you're already stabilized in your market and you see really good conversion rates coming from your market, good CPIs or CPAs, depending on what your goal is, I would highly recommend implementing Firebase and make use of TROAS bidding, because ultimately Google will search for the people that are, bringing you most of the revenue. So depending on which stage you are, I would definitely consider this. Otherwise, you can see there's a really top to down, step-by-step funnel that you can walk down on the run. Now we heard a lot about bidding and different types of creative, different types of campaigns and so on. The second big lever on Google App Campaigns is creative. And I would almost say that it's as important as bidding, as really knowing how much you bid and for which events you bid. The same thing should count for creative. So I would say they have the same weight. It's a very powerful lever, since we have only 2 major or 3 major inputs that we can give to Google Ads. Creative is one of them, and this is where you can also outperform your competitors a lot. And now let's go a bit more into detail. I mean, when you look at your channel mix that you have, let's say you have Google, Facebook, Apple, maybe ad networks as well, you know that each and every network has different types of creatives. And I know this is a big pain point probably for a lot of people out there. You need to produce a lot of creatives in order to be really serving all the channels. But yeah, unfortunately, it is how it is. And for Google, you really need to consider that, the AI, and this is one of the points already on the side, the AI needs time to learn. So unlike for Facebook, for example, that maybe you can get already reasonable results within a couple of days of testing creatives, Google needs a bit more time to learn. So you will input a lot of different like assets, texts. We will check that on the next slide then. But the algorithm just needs time to combine these assets, serve it on different placements, and needs to learn where you get the most conversions, be it installs, be it conversions on the CPA level, or be it revenue for the TROAS bidding. And learn on that and learn where to serve the next ads. Also on the ad group level, I would see it as a kind of unified, well, let's not say unified, but it's the only opportunity basically in Google Ads on how to kind of test different creatives. Since we know that on Facebook you have the A/B testing methodology, you have the A/B testing setup possibilities. On Google, you don't have it. So that's why I meant before, theming the creatives on, your specific business needs, may it be games or be it USPs and so on and so forth. This should basically give you the possibility to test a bit around and see what kind of or what type of creative works best for you on Google Ads. So if you segment them into themes, since you cannot target, this is basically the only option that you have to see what kind of creative work well. So I would not recommend just taking all the creative that you have and putting them into one ad group. Yes, you will see performance still on the asset level, but let's say if you go a bit more structured into it, you will know what kind of themes work well, and then you can focus your creative production based on these results and themes that you see. Obviously, another point here that is also very important for Google in terms of video, since they have the biggest video network out there with YouTube, is showing in-app experiences. It's just a must. I mean, within the first 5 seconds, we will talk about it in a bit. You should make the users clear what is your product and app about, and that's an absolute important thing to do for well-performing creative. Now, if we go a bit more into detail, You can, I mean, most of you probably know this already as well, but just to quickly remind you of how many different assets there are out there. I mean, you can have text, you can have videos, you can have images, and even HTML5 creatives. They can be, for example, very valuable for games, or for those out there, for those of you out there who are working in a gaming studio or working as a game publisher. Playable HTML5 creatives tend to work really, really, really well still. So this is something where we see high success. But obviously the most important ones are text and videos. And you can upload up to 20 videos in one ad group, up to 20 images in one ad group, even up to 20 HTML5, and also up to 5 headlines and 5 descriptions. And Google will automatically form creatives out of these assets that you do. So it's not like in Facebook that you define a headline, you define a description, and you upload a video, and this is how your creative will look like at all times. But Google does it like this, that it randomly chooses assets and tries it out, and basically always looks out for the best performance based on the bidding method that you have in place. And therefore, the more inputs you give here, the better it is, because since we're limited, like we said, on bidding and creative mostly, we need to give the algorithm as many means as possible in order to perform, well and get the best performance out of. So here it says at least 2 headlines and 1 description are needed, but I recommend you try to get all slots filled out. 20 videos, 20 images, and if you have even more, even better, because the more material Google has, the more likely it will be that the machine learning will find a well-performing, let's say, creative, that it will then obviously deliver more and more and more. And this tends to increase your performance and scale your campaign overall. Then another big tip, and so basically the last 2 tips here on this slide, is assets should make sense on their own, but also in combination. So this is mainly about texts. Yeah. If you think of 5 headlines and 5 descriptions, think of it in a way that each and every sentence that you put there has to make also sense on their own. So don't take like in the good old days with maybe web search ads, yeah, that you kind of take one sentence and split it into 3 headlines, yeah, because this will not make sense on Google App campaigns, because then just a fragment of a sentence could be, for example, combined with a video or an image, and this would look very weird to the user. So make full sentences that make sense on their own, but also in combination, and make also sure, yeah, to use as many different keywords as possible. So don't repeat too many keywords within these kind of texts, because you just increase your chance also for the search part of the Google App campaigns when you use more diverse keywords that are related to your product or your service. On the ad excellence score, this is just the last tip. We see in here an example from an ad group that we had, yeah, and we see, for example, that the Google suggests headlines, descriptions, images are okay, but videos are kind of missing. And that's why our ad excellence score is good, but it's not perfect. Obviously, the aim I would recommend, and this is based on every different, let's say, install ad that you have on Google, will get an own excellence score. And obviously, the aim should be to always have it excellent. And that means not to just use texts and images in an ad group and then text and video in another, because what you will do is you will get a mediocre ad excellence score, and your competitor, who maybe has a higher score, will have the advantage, and Google ML will, so the machine learning will prefer these kind of ad groups. Then if we jump over to the next slide, yeah, we see maybe some last tips and tricks also for let's say, talking generally about videos versus images, yeah. Obviously, many people use bumper videos on YouTube. Yeah, we all know it when we, I don't know, browse through YouTube or on our TVs, on the TV apps and stuff like this. The first 5 seconds are partly a must, so they're skippable. Yeah? But within those first 5 seconds, we should show as many app-related or our service-related topics as possible. Yeah. Make sure to show your brand name, make sure to show in-app experience. If it's a game, even gameplay, you have to deliver an image within 5 seconds that users are kind of convinced to either stay on the video to finish it, or to download the app right away. Yeah, so the first 5 seconds are key. We also know that from social media, there we even say usually the first 2 or 3 seconds are the most important, because if users scroll through the feeds, their attention span tends to be very low, and you need to convince them very quick to stop at your ad. Yeah? YouTube is a bit more generous in that regard, because you're partly forced to watch these first 5 seconds. And that gives you a huge power to show what you have. And this is what I would recommend to really always keep in mind with any video that you produce. Another thing to keep in mind regarding videos is still the formats. Again, comparing it to Facebook, which is completely different, is more focused on the on the stream. Their portrait format is basically the winning one since many years now. On YouTube is a bit different. Yeah? So on YouTube, still widescreen or the landscape version are the most serving videos that we see. Yeah? So if you want to scale your Google campaigns properly, make absolutely sure to include landscape videos as well. Obviously, you can also use portrait, you can use square as well, similar to the formats that you have on Facebook, for example. And it's also good to cross-use them, yeah. But the landscape one is definitely still the most important one. For images, on the other hand, it's basically the same. Also here, the landscape ones are still the most serving ones, though we tend to see that images are less important for Google than obviously YouTube, yeah, because it's just a massive placement within Google App Campaigns. And Google also started to roll out new formats that kind of go into the way that Facebook does it, with the 4x5 and the 1x1, so the square format that weren't basically there before. If you have the production resources, let's say, that you can produce more sizes of videos, more sizes of images, I recommend to always fill out the max, because ultimately, if we think back a little, to always fill out all slots in all the ad groups is just recommended. It will higher your chances to outperform your competitor. But not everybody has this. Not everybody has endless, let's say, creative production resources. In this case, I would start to prioritize. Go for the sizes first that are most likely delivering more. And with landscape on both video and image, you have a higher chance that at least you can reach your daily spend if you're spending higher than even outbid your competitors. Another last tip, let's say, for images as well, Google started to kind of roll out, let's say, changes that we also maybe some of you know from old Facebook times, with a 20% text limit, etc., etc. I think Facebook reversed it by now again, but Google starts to reject, and I think they roll it out gradually this year. They start already to reject images that have content on it that doesn't reflect on your app content. So let's say foreign CTAs. Ads become too selly like that, or too pushy in regards to Google. So Google also wants to go a bit more the native way in that sense, and will start to reject this kind of images. So I would recommend you not to put too much CTAs anymore. Put all your texting efforts really in the headlines and in the description. And really also, if you have a copywriter at hand, I would highly recommend also to give the task to them to come up really with unique and proper texts describing your product or your app, because you can gain much more out of this than just putting a CTA on an image, which Google will start to reject very soon, or starts to already reject at the moment. And also 20% text rule. I mean, back in the day, I also heard that it's already kind of in place, and the crawler of Google already starts crawling images and pushing down the delivery on those that are too texty, that have too much text on them. I would also simply recommend go for images that are very descriptive, yeah, with imagery, with elements from your app already, yeah. This is totally legitimate, but avoid too much text on it, and avoid CTAs that are, let's say, too foreign to your app, because Google will compare it with the app that is in the Play Store, and then most likely start to reject this kind of images. This is just for images. Yeah? So as we can see, yeah, there's lots of stuff to consider for creatives. Yeah? One very last tip from my end for videos. Yeah? there's the possibility to have video only campaigns. Yeah, we said before, Google doesn't have an A/B testing possibility like Facebook, but there is this video only campaign thingy, let's call it, yeah, where you can activate. You cannot activate it in the campaign setup. Yeah, so it's not a visible switch or checkbox that you can see right now in Google Ads, but it has to be done with your Google managers. They usually give you the possibility to have a video only campaign. What it means is that you don't upload texts there, you don't upload images, and you will only have videos there, which are not properly A/B tested with test and control groups, but they just perform against each other like normal, like a regular, let's say, ad within an ad group. So it's a kind of way at least to test videos, yeah. And I also recommend you to do that if you have enough budget and if you have enough creative, let's say, resources. But another thing to keep in mind is when you do that, yeah, you will most likely get results out of it for let's say, a new direction to bring your videos to. But it will also increase for sure your metrics overall for this campaign. So if you're looking for performance, don't start these campaigns. They're really rather just for testing, because if you just so let's say if you just place your videos on the YouTube and the AdMob placement, then most likely will have higher CPIs or higher CPAs than on your regular UAC or Google App campaigns. So this you have to keep it in mind. There's a trade-off at this point for video only campaigns, but you can anyhow use them for testing if you wanted to. Yes, and that concludes the tips and tricks on creative. I hope it was useful to you. And now I'm handing over back to Rebecca. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Since we are at the very end of our time, I would actually suggest that we jump into one question only. It would be cool if, Christoph, you could open the Q&A section and just select one at random and try to answer it now. And the other ones, I promise we will answer all the questions in the follow-up email. Don't worry, everything will be answered, but just that we can talk about at least one question.
Yeah, there's so many good questions, but we will get back to all of you. I mean, I see a very good one in the beginning. It's a bit about cannibalization. That's a good point. Pavel writes, is it recommended to run 2 campaigns simultaneously, one for installs and another one for engagement, or is there a risk of cannibalization? So this is a good point. I mean, if you, let's say, run an app install campaign versus an engagement campaign, it's definitely recommended to run them at the same time, because one is rather focusing on getting new users, while the engagement campaign is focusing on, let's call it, I mean, it's a bit retargeting, is focusing on getting users back to your app to fulfill a certain action or to make them aware of an event or something like that. So this is definitely recommended to run at the same time. But let me extend here for a bit. It's not recommended to run 2 user acquisition or 2 acquisition campaigns at the same time within the same markets, because then it's very likely that these campaigns will cannibalize themselves and drive up the CPIs just within your organization. I mean, imagine you're already competing. Let's say if you're a dating app, you're already competing against many competitors out there, games even higher probably. And then you don't want to even compete with your own campaigns against yourself. So installs versus engagement, absolutely fine, because it's 2 different ways of let's say, acquiring users. But if you're, let's say, run 2 campaigns in Germany simultaneously, you have to calculate with higher CPAs in one or the other. Yeah.
That's it, I think, right?
Exactly.
Cool.
I hope that
then
helped.
Thank you very much. As you can see, and as you just heard, or let's say if you want more insights on this kind of topics, Christoph and our services team would be very happy to talk to you guys privately. Just feel free to reach out to sales@appradar.com. And finally, thank you all for joining today. I hope to see you next month as well. If you have any questions, just reach out to me, or to the follow-up email that I will send out this or next week. And other than that, thank you guys for joining, and that's it. goodbye and have a nice afternoon or end of the day, depending on where you live. Cool. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.